Do you want to turn your skills into a source of income? If yes, then this course is for you. Because in this course, you will learn how to create animations and product renderings that will not only allow you to create a portfolio that will attract new clients to you, but also will allow you to satisfy your clients and grow in the 3D field. And you don't need a higher education in 3D or supernatural abilities to learn this, because in this course, it will touch on all stages of creating content in 3D, from basic knowledge, modeling and creating textures, to animation, lighting, and even color correction. And we will also share the secrets of professionals that will allow you to learn how to be one. So don't miss the opportunity to learn valuable skills with which you can create a unique portfolio that will attract clients to you and will help you gain respect from the client. Let's not waste a minute and let's get started. This lesson will be useful not only for absolute beginners who have learned how to open a Blender, but also for pros, because you will also learn a secret technique that will make your work much easier and save you a lot of time. In this lesson we will learn all the basic knowledge that will be necessary not only to create today's masterpiece, but also which will serve as a basis for you to create any 3D model, which will give you unlimited possibilities in creating masterpieces. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is open a Blender and create a new project. And congratulations, you have learned Blender. Just kidding, we have a lot of new things to learn. But let's start with a theory. The 3D world consists of 3 directions, of length, width and height, or X, Y and Z axis. In Blender we can notice them as red, green and blue lines, and you can also find out which axis you are on by looking here. In Blender, as in other programs, you can scale, rotate or move an object along the X, Y or Z axis. To scale an object, you must first select it by clicking on it and then press S. In order to rotate, press R key. In order to move, G key. And also, if you then press the X, Y or Z keys, you can do these 3 actions along a specific axis. Blender also has modes that you can choose here. And as you can see, there are a lot of them, but today we will analyze only 2 of them, the edit mode and the object mode, in which we are by default, and which allows us to select different objects and make changes that I mentioned earlier. As edit mode is intended for more detailed changes to the object. To go to the edit mode, we need to press Tab. And in it we have the opportunity to choose between changes to vertices, edges or faces, which we can select using 1, 2 or 3 keys. And we can also rotate them, move them and scale them. But in edit mode there is another new action available, and this is extrusion. To extrude you need to select the vertex, corner or face and press the E key. So let's move on to how to rotate the camera and create objects. To see our object from different angles, you need to hold down the middle mouse button and move the mouse, or rotate the mouse wheel to zoom out or move closer to the object. But how to create an object? Everything is simple here. To do this, we press Shift+A, and here we can select a different set of things that we can create, from standard shapes to Suzanne. You can play with it and find out where everything is. And now the trick I promised at the beginning. And now a question for the experts. Did you know that in edit mode you can simultaneously select vertices, edges and faces without switching between them every time and without using the annoying menu or keys? Well, this is possible. And to do this, let's go to the edit mode, and with holding Shift, select, for example, vertices and corners in this menu. And now we can select both. You can even not waste time and select everything at once to save a lot of time and save your fingers from hard work labor. In this lesson, we learned all the basic knowledge that is useful for creating a 3D model, and also learned a secret that will make your work much easier and save you a lot of time when changing an object. And in the next lesson, we will apply the knowledge gained and create all necessary objects for animation. And see you in the next lesson. In the previous lesson, we learned the basic knowledge with which we can create 3D models. And in this part, we will create a 3D model of a product that will become the center of attention and the main object of our scene. So let's get started. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin. So the first thing we need to do is obviously open the Blender. And I hope you have already installed Blender. If you don't, just go to Google, type download Blender and download the latest version from the site. So with Blender open, let's create a new project. And in the left corner, you can see all the buttons that I press. So even if I say something wrong, you can see what I'm doing right now and repeat after me. Okay, so select all these things and delete them. Then press 3 on the numpad, go to the front view and press Shift+A and select the reference that I have attached to this course below. And let's move the reference on the X-axis so that it doesn't interfere with us when modeling. And now I will show you a unique way of creating objects from a reference using curves. So press Shift+A and create a Bezier curve. Let's rotate on the X-axis by 90 degrees. Go to the Edit mode by pressing Tab. And similar to the pen tool in Photoshop, we will replicate the shape of the can by selecting these points, moving them and scaling them, and also rotating them. And when you're done with that angle, press E to duplicate the curve. And then we need to repeat this process until we duplicate the shape of the can. To be honest, this tool takes a bit of practice and may take you some time to get used to it. Okay, we have already covered half of it, and we don't need to do the same on the other side. And now I will show you why. Okay, now that everything is ready, right click, click Convert to and select Mesh. So now it is no longer a curve. Then go into the Edit mode, select everything by pressing A, select the Spin tool on the left side of the screen, and make sure that the Z-axis is selected here, and the color of this line is blue. Then grab this plus icon and move your mouse, and you can see that the can is magically appears on our eyes. Now in the lower corner there is a setting menu for this tool, in which we can change the angle, which will be 360. And the number of steps. I'll set it to 17 steps, but if you have a slow computer, you can leave it less. But don't set it to a very small amount because our can will be too low poly for a realistic render. Okay, let's tweak our can a little. At the bottom of the can, let's select all these vertices by holding Alt and turn on proportional editing here. Then press G, and by rotating the mouse wheel, you can adjust the proportional editing radius. And just move along the Z-axis. And thanks to it, by changing these vertices, we can influence and change those that are around. To hide this hole, press F. Okay, let's go to the top part. And here we need to select all these vertices. Press E, then S to scale. Then press E again
and move it down on the z-axis, and we can also scale it a little. Okay, let's add more polygons to it and add a subdivision modifier here. And shade it smooth. And I decided to get rid of all these vertices because I thought that we wouldn't need that many vertices, but later on I was wrong because we will need them for a little bonus that will add more realism to our scene. But if you have a low PC or laptop, or weak PC or laptop, you can also do this by selecting all of them, holding Alt, and after you're done, press X and select Dissolve Edges. Okay, let's add one more reference. So press Num7 on the numpad to go to the tab view, then press Shift+A, Image, Reference, and then select the second reference. Let's also scale it to match with our product. Next, select our product. Go to the Edit mode, hide the division for more convenience, and select these vertices. Then press Shift+D to duplicate them. And then select P selection to make them a separate object. Go back to the object mode and use Shift to select the reference and vertices we duplicated, and hit slash to focus on just those two. Okay, let's go into Edit mode and extrude these vertices, and then scale them. And to make our job easier, let's add a loop cut here to add a center edge to the side. And then we need to select all vertices on the left side. And then delete them. I know this sounds weird because now we're missing half the can, but when we add the mirror modifier, everything will be in a place. Just make sure you only select the z-axis in that modifier. Now when we do something in the right side, it will repeat it on the left side. So let's move the vertices according to the reference. Then select these vertices and extrude them along the z-axis. And let's scale them too. Oh yeah, we also need to check the clipping in the mirror modifier, and now move the vertices to the center. From this side, and from this side. Alright, and now we just need to move the vertices according to the reference. Okay, and when everything is ready, let's extrude and scale it again. And as you can see, the process is not very complicated and quite simple. So again, move the vertices according to the reference. And here extrude this edge. And select these two edges. And then also extrude them and move along the x-axis. To fill this hole, select the edges around and press F. And do the same here. Let's also add a loop cut here and just move it according to the reference. Let's extrude and scale it again. And we need to connect these edges by selecting them on this side and on this and pressing F, and on this side too. Okay, let's save our file by pressing Ctrl+S. Okay, and when we put our subdivision modifier back, we'll see this terrible result. To fix this, simply take the mirror modifier and place it over the subdivision, and everything should work fine again. Let's make it more realistic by adding loop cuts around the edges. We can hide the subdivision modifier for convenience and add the loop cuts in those places where we need sharp edges. Alright, looking great, but there's one more thing we need to create to complete our can. We need to create the opener. So go to the edit mode, select that face, duplicate it, press P, selection, and make it a separate object. And now let's move it or even hide it for convenience. And here we again simply move the edges and extrude them according to the reference, as we did before. But here we need to extrude it up along the Z-axis. And to add thickness, select everything by pressing A, and then extrude everything along the Z-axis. And also, we need to add loop cuts around the edges for more realism. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've almost created the can. The last thing we need to do is get everything into place. To land this part exactly on our plane, we need to open this menu and click on this square picture and move this part along the Z-axis. And with hold Ctrl, click on that plane. And let's apply mirror modifiers to our objects. Now let's select all objects and combine them into a full can by pressing Ctrl+J. And here we go, our can is created. In the previous lesson, we learned a unique way of creating from reference and created a 3D model of the product. And now we will continue modeling and create new objects necessary for animation using new interesting methods. Okay, so let's hide all the objects and create a cube. Then we'll go into the edit mode and add a loop cuts by pressing Ctrl+R. And here, let's change the number to 17 in this menu. And in this side, also make 17 loop cuts. And on this side too. Alright. And now we need to go to the sculpture mode. And with help of all of these brushes, we will create a realistic ice cube. I usually use these brushes. You can also change the strength, radius of the brush. Let's also add a subdivision modifier to it. And use our imagination and the tools that we have to give the shape of eyes. We can also use proportional editing to form a cube. And this is what I got in the end. Now let's go back to the object mode and return all the objects. And scale our cube to a realistic size. And also let's rename our objects. Just select the object, and here we can give it a name. And also let's unhide our references and create a collection for it. By pressing M, new collection, and naming it. And now we can hide it. Okay, let's create an apple. Press Shift+A and create a UV sphere. Go to the edit mode, select vertex at the top and at the bottom. And now we need to enable proportional editing and scale it on the axis while changing the radius of proportional editing. I also pressed S plus Shift plus Z to scale on every axis except of Z axis. And let's also add a subdivision for more realism. And also, using proportional editing, we can add more details for even more realism. And when we're done, let's create the last object to complete our apple. So press Shift plus A and create a cylinder. Scale it and place it on top of the apple. Then go to the edit mode and add a bunch of loop cuts. Select the top vertices and with proportional editing enabled, rotate them. Now select the top face and extrude it. Now we can disable proportional editing and we need to scale it a little. And for realism, we can add a subdivision modifier and also add a loop cut along the edges. Okay, so the last thing we need to create before we move to texturing, animation, rendering, and all of that good stuff is text. So press Shift+A and create a text. Rotate it on 90 degrees on the axis, and by pressing Tab, now we can change the text. And let's write something that will attract attention. Here is this menu, we can change our text how we want. For now, let's change the font here. I personally choose a Berlin Sans, but you can choose whatever font you like. Let's also rotate it on Y-axis by 90 degrees. And in this menu, we can also change the depth more and extrude it. But if we do that, we might see this bug. So let's do it another way. First, let's convert it to the mesh. And if we go to the edit mode, we will see this horrible topology. So let's fix it. And then we need to add a remesh modifier and change the voxel size to something less. But be very careful and change it gradually, because the less the number, the more vertices, and your chances of crash will rise. And also, this is why I want you to save your project, because I didn't save it. And last, all the progress. Usually, if you didn't save your project, you can recover if you click on File, Recover, and Autosave. And here should be all the autosaves of your project. But for unknown reasons, my Blender decided not to save anything, so I had to create everything again. Alright, let's back to our text, and this time I set the voxel size to 0.006 and also added a solidify modifier. And then applied all modifiers. And as you can see, the number of polygons is too high. So we need to add another modifier called decimate and play with the ratio until the number of polygons will be acceptable to us. Let's say from 15 to 60,000 polygons. And we need also apply this modifier. Now let's go to the edit mode and select the letter with X-ray turned on, which will allow us to see through the object. And then press P selection to separate this letter. And we need to do that with every letter that we have. Then exit edit mode, and while all the letters are selected, right click and set the origin to the geometry. And also let's create a collection for a text by pressing M, new collection, and giving it a name. And also let's return all the objects. Let's also scale everything to a more realistic size. And also make sure the length of the apple is less than the length of the can. This is very important for animation and our object created. In the previous lesson we created all the necessary objects, and now we will learn how to add color to the scene and figure out how to create and apply materials and textures to the scene to create a wow effect. So let's get started. Alright, so the first material that we'll create is the ice material. for the ice cube. So go to the shading and select our cube. Then click on new and create a new material for the cube. And here we need to change the transmission to 1.
Now we need to enable one very important add-on. So go to the edit, then settings, then add-on, and type Node Wrangler in the search bar and put a check mark in front of it. And after that, we can close the window.
Okay, then press Shift+A and type noise texture and create it. In the same way, create color ramp and connect noise texture to the color ramp. Then click on noise texture and press Ctrl+T. And let's also connect color ramp to the roughness. And now let's change the parameters of the noise texture. Scale change to 4.1. Detail change to 11.8 or so. And the rest we will leave as it is. And the color ramp, take the black stick and place it at the 0.45 position. And the white stick to position 0.8. And this is the result we have right now. But we can do it much better. And to do this, let's create another noise texture. And this time we will create a bump node and duplicate it. And this noise texture connect to the height of the bump, and bump node connect to the normal. And as you can see, the trend is too much, so we need to change it to 0.08. And also we need to connect this noise texture to this bump node. And let's change the noise texture parameters. Detail we can change to 2.8 and the roughness to 0.4. And let's connect the bump node to the clear coat normal. And also change the strength, but this time to 0.12. And our texture is ready. Now it's time to create the texture for an apple. So let's do that. Select an apple and go to the shading. Again, click on New to create new material, then select that node and press Ctrl+Shift+T and select the textures that I have attached to your below the course. We can also increase the strength of the normal map. And we can delete the displacement and the ambient occlusion textures. Now let's create a new material for another part of the apple. We need to go to this menu and here click on plus. And here create a new material. And here we need to change the color to brown or something that will remind us of the wood. And as you can see, nothing changed. This is because we need to apply this material to this particular part. And to do that, go to the edit mode, select any face of this part and press L. And after that, click on Assign. And as you can see, the material applied to our part, to this part. And to make it more realistic, let's add a nice texture. And in addition to that, we need to add a bump node. And again, connect noise texture to the height. All that left to do is change the noise and bump node parameters. Now let's add colors to our text. Select a single text and go to the shading. And add a new material. And here, everything is very quick and simple. We just need to change the roughness. I played around with this parameter and found that 0.35 is the best value for me. You can also try playing with it and see what suits you best. To apply this material to other letters, let's select them all, and the last one we need to select this letter with the material, and then press Ctrl+L and link the materials. And the last but not least, we need to texture the can. But before we do that, we need to add seams to the can in order to apply our texture correctly. So go to the edit mode, and now we need to select the vertices where our label will start and end. Just select them with Alt, right click and select Mark Seams. At the bottom of the can, let's select all these vertices by holding Alt, right click and select Mark Seams. And also we need to go to the back of our can and select the center line. And also mark the seam. And now we can add texture to our can. Go to the material settings, click 2 times on the plus and create a material for the second one. It will be a metallic material, so increase the metallic value to 1 or close to 1 and reduce the roughness to 0.17 or so. Okay, we did all that, but nothing happens. This is because we need to apply this material to certain parts of our can, which is why we previously created the seams. And to apply it, we need to go to the edit mode, select one face from the tab and press L. And here we need to select the second material and press Assign. And we need to do this at the bottom as well. And also, this whole part should be metal. So let's apply a material to it. Okay, great. And now it's time to add a label. So create a new material for the first slot, then select this node and press Ctrl+P. And select one of the labels I leave in the description. I will leave you 3 or 4 different labels so that you can learn how to apply them all. Because when rendering a product, this part is very important. And you need to pay attention to the details, because if your label is too big or small than the original, it could ruin everything, and your client might not be happy with it. Okay, so now let's go to the editor, the editor here, go to the edit mode, click on the face, select them all, and now we need to press U and click on wrap. In this window, let's rotate the CV map on 90 degrees. And as you can see, we can apply the label to the can in this way. But as you can see, there is something wrong, and the label is mirrored. And to fix this, we need to press Shift plus N on the tab window, press U and unwrap it again. And now we need to select all of these edges from top to bottom by holding Shift and Alt. And when you have selected them all, press the right button and select Strengthen. And they will be perfectly straight. And now we need to do this on this side also. And now we need to just scale it, rotate it, and move it until it matches the actual reference. Let's also increase the metallic on this material and the roughness. And here we go, we learned how to texture. In the previous lesson we learned how to add color to a scene and apply materials and textures to create a wow effect. And in this lesson we will bring our object to life using animation. So let's get started. Before we start animating, we need to add a camera to the scene. And by going here, we can change the resolution of your animation. For example, if you want to create animation for social media, you need to change it to 120 to 120. I will leave it at Full HD by default. Let's also go into the camera settings and change the focal length to 125 to make our render look more professional. And if you press N, you should open this menu, and in the view we will be able to check camera to view. And now we will be able to move the camera using the mouse wheel. If you want to do it more smoothly, you need to press Ctrl, hold the mouse wheel and move the mouse. So now that we've decided on the camera position, let's move the apple and the cube behind the can. And let's duplicate them too. And our objects will go in that way. Let's also select the letters and move it on the Z-axis so we can see them. And also let's place them in front of the can, somewhere here. And let's move it a little bit on the Z-axis. Now let's animate the text. So to do that, go to the first frame and move the text down on the Z-axis. And by clicking I, location and rotation, we have applied the location of this text and the rotation for this frame. Now let's go to the another frame and move the text back. And again, press I, location and rotation. And here is the result we get. But I want the letters to appear one after the other. And to do this, I'll select the second letter and move the last keyframe forward 10 frames. Then we need to select the fourth layer and move the last keyframe forward, but this time by 20 frames. The fourth layer we need to move 30 frames forward, the fifth letter by 40 frames forward, and so on. And let's see what we got. Yeah, this is great. And I think we need to make this animation faster. And to do this, select all the letters and select all the keyframes and just scale them. And by playing around a little with scale, I have this result. Let's also go to the first frame and add keyframes to the apples. Then go to the 15th frame, move the apple where you want it to be, and don't forget to check the camera view. Let's also rotate it. And when we are happy with the result, we can apply the keyframe. Good. And now we need to animate the second apple. Again, move the apple to the right place and then add a keyframe when you are happy with the result. And that's what we have right now. The next thing we need to do is animate the ice cube. And here we need to do the same. First we need to go to the first frame and add a keyframe for all of the ice cubes. Then go to the frame 50, move the ice, rotate it, and add another keyframe. Now let's go to the frame 98 and move the ice somewhere here. And when we are ready with the result, we can apply the keyframe. And let's see what we got. And also, if you want to simulate a slow motion effect of the cube, you can move the last keyframe further. This is probably too far. I think frame 130 would be enough. And I want this cube to stop at the end of the animation. So I will go to frame 89 or 98 and add the keyframe. And remove this one. And here we go. Let's animate another cube. This time we will move it to the right. Again, we're doing the same thing. This is pretty straightforward and simple. You also need to check if our objects don't overlap. If they do, just move the object somewhere below or at the left or at the right. then move to the last frame, and again move it and rotate it. And when you're ready, apply the keyframe. And let's see what we got. And here, as you can see, the objects are overlapping. And to solve this problem, we just need to select our ice cube and move the keyframes a little bit to the right side. I also deleted the middle keyframe because I liked it more, but you can leave it if you want. And by the same principle, we need to animate all the ice cubes that we have. In the process, I added a couple more cubes to fill the empty space in the animation. And this is the result I've got in the end. And the last thing we need to animate is the can. And it's very simple. Let's go to the first frame again, but this time we'll move our can down a little and add a keyframe. Then go to the frame 40, then move the can up and add a keyframe. And now we need to go to the frame 60 and just copy and paste the first keyframe. Then go to the last frame, which is 98, and copy and paste the second keyframe. And you can also tweak the keyframe a bit if you want. And this is what we have at the end. Now let's add light to our scene. But before we start, we need to create a background for our scene. And to do this, create a plane, scale it, and place it under the scene. Let's also duplicate the plane and rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis. This background will also serve as a light reflector, and we also need to scale it on the x-axis a little. Now let's add a material to it, and the material will be very simple. Just let's choose color for any color you want. And let's change specular to 0.26 and the roughness to 0.535. And now let's add light to our scene. First, click here on the globe icon and click on that yellow dot and select the environment texture. Click open, and you can download the HDRI that I have attached below to this course specifically for this tutorial, or you can go to a website like Polyheaven and download any HDRI you need for absolutely free. It's not an ad, it's just a little tip. As you can see, nothing changed. This is because we need to go to the render view. But before that, let's click on the TV icon and change the render engine to cycles and the device to GPU compute. And now if we click here, we'll go to the render window and see our HDRI. Also, we need to add background material to this scene. And here, let's change the HDRI strength to 0.5. Now we need to go to the shading and here select word instead of object. And I want the light from this window to be on the left side of our scene. And to do this, select the HDRI and press Ctrl+T. And if we change the Z angle on the rotation, we can rotate our HDRI. In my case, I need to rotate it on 62 degrees. If you're using another HDRI, you can adjust it to your liking. And now let's add a background light. So Shift+A and create an area light. And rotate it -90 degrees on the x-axis. And from the camera view, we need to scale it so that it follows the width and height of the can. And now we can move it closer to the background. And now I will show you a trick professionals using when working with lighting. They don't usually switch from the object mode to the rendering view a bunch of times after a very small lighting change. But what do? They grab the right angle from both and move it, splitting the screen in two. And on the left side, there will be a view from the camera in the render viewport. And on the right side, we will edit everything. So let's go to the render viewport here. And as you can see, nothing has changed in the background. And to see the changes, we need to increase the power of the slide. Go to the settings of the light and change the strength to, let's say, 800. And now we can see this amazing result at the background. And we can change the position of the light to your liking. Okay, let's add another light source, this time spotlight. And move it along the Z-axis. And from the view of the top, make sure that the radius covers most of our objects. Also, increase power of the slide to 1700 or maybe even more. And we can play with spot size and make the light harsher or softer. The less number, the harsher the light. Okay, let's change the power to something more. Let's add another one area light. Let's move it up, scale it. And place it somewhere here. And by clicking 2 times R, we can direct the light to our can. And when we are satisfied with the result, we can increase the power. I would set it for 530. Let's duplicate the light and place it in the same way on the right side. And for this, we need to change the power to something low. Shouldn't be the main source of the light. The main source is the object that we created recently, the area light that we created recently. This one is serving for the right side to not make it very dark, to make it a little bit brighter. And as you can see, we need more light for the text. So duplicate the spotlight. Move it and rotate it in front of the text. And in the light settings, we need to change the type of light to the area.
and scale it along the X and Z axis. And let's change the power to 53 and change the sprite a little. Also, I think the slide is too bright. Let's increase the power. And our lighting is ready. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a bonus. I will add more realism and visual appeal to our scene. First, we need to create a UV sphere. Smooth it and scale it. And after that, we need to move the sphere outside of our scene. And also rename it. Then click on the jar, go to the particles settings, and add a new particle systems. Select the hair, click on advanced, and in render, it will be all closed. But when you open the render, in the render as, change the path to the object. And here you can select our object, our drop. And here is the result of the cat. Earlier, if you deleted the vertices here, you need to add them back because the particle system is based on geometry, and if you have low amount of vertices, the particle system might not work properly. Okay, let's go to the particle settings. In the scale, you can change the scale of our particles, and in scale randomness, you can randomize the scale of our drop. And in number, you can select any number you want. I will stick with 530, and that's basically it. And we can create the same particle system to the apple, but instead of doing that all again, we can apply the same particle system that we created. You just need to know the name of the particle system. And if we go to the render viewport, we can see that we need to create a new material for this drop. So select our drop and create a new material for it. Change the roughness to 0 and change transparent to 1. You can also change the IOR to make our water drop more transparent. And I think I need to change this particle system on the apple anyway. So to do that, we need to click on this icon so that the changes that we applied to this apple not applying to can. And now we can change the particle system. I will decrease the number and also play with scale parameters. And also we can, in the same way, apply the particle system of this apple to this apple. And this will add realism to our scene and will get way more attention. And all that left to do is to change the render settings before rendering. And we almost set up everything.
all we need to do is to change max samples between 500 and 2000. I don't recommend you to set it more because it makes no sense and will load your computer and your processor. And also don't set it too low because the quality is also important. If you have a low PC, I would recommend you not go lower than 300, let's say, because it's below the 300 will be very poor quality. Also, in color management, we need to change the contrast to medium height. And here, we need to change the file format to JPEG instead of PNG. Here we can change the file where our animation will be saved. And now all that remains is to click on render and render the animation. After we finished rendering, we ended up with a lot of images that didn't look like videos. And in this part, of course, I will show you how to convert those images into a proper video format. So let's get started. So click on the plus button at the top, go to the video editing and click video editing. Then we need to go back to the first frame, then click add and image sequence, and then select all the images you rendered. But before that, make sure you sort it by name. Otherwise, your animation could go backward. And then select Add Image Strip. And the last thing we need to do is change the rendering settings. And this time, instead of the PNG format, we need to select the FFmpeg video and change the encoding quality to constant bitrate. And also you can change the video file and name. And now we need to click on render animation again. But don't worry, this time it won't take much time. Post-processing is one of the most important steps you need to take to impress your audience. Color grading is where the magic happens. And I will show you how you can improve your animation and make it even more beautiful. So let's begin. I personally use Premiere Pro for color grading, but you can use any other software. But the basics are all the same, so don't worry if you have different software. Okay, let's open our program and create a new project and name it. And after we have created the project, if you use Premiere Pro, you will see this. Now we need to find our animation, grab it and move it to this section. At the top we can watch our video, and now grab it again and move it to this section. And go to color. And select our animation. And this is the place where we will be creating the magic. In the contrast, increase to, let's say, 33. And also increase the highlights. I personally like when the highlights is in positive numbers, not negative, but if you like more dark animations or dark style, you can also make it a negative number. But for this one, I think we need to change to something positive, like 70 or 80. And the shadows, we need to reduce to, let's say, -50 or -70, something like that. Also, we can increase the saturation a little and increase the exposure if the animation too dark. And as you can see, it already looks better than the original, but we can make it even better. Let's move on to creative, and here we can change the filters. And also we can change intensity. Personally, I like this filter, but you can choose whichever one you want. Now, to render it, we need to click on this bracket and then grab this bracket and move it to the end of our video. Then go to File, Export, Media, and then in the presets, you can choose any presets you want. If it's a full HD, I either choose high quality or the YouTube preset. For this one, I will use the YouTube preset and click on Use Maximum Render Quality. Oh yeah, and in the output name, we can change the name and destination of the video. And as a final step, we need to click on the export. Unfortunately, this course has come to an end. And in this course, we learned a lot of useful things and are ready to create an amazing portfolio and conquer our first client. We started the journey with basic knowledge and slowly but surely moved forward, learning modeling, sculpting, and other techniques, and created our products and other objects. Then we learned how to create textures and painted our masterpiece. After that, we gave life to our object using animation and finished it all with color correction and made our video even more vibrant and attractive. And this is the result that we got in the end. I'll be glad to see different variations of your works and perhaps be inspired by your ideas. Do not forget to share your opinion and your work in the comments. And if you have questions about the lesson, I'm always ready to answer and help you. And unfortunately, I have to say bye and see you in the next course.